The dust on Epsilon 7 never settled. It hung in the air like a red mist, making everything look like an old photograph. Daesung wiped his goggles and checked his toolkit again. The defense grid on the eastern perimeter had gone offline 3 hours ago, and the colony administrator wanted it fixed before nightfall. He walked through the maze of storage containers, his boots crunching on the gravel. The mining colony was quiet today. Most workers were inside because of the dust storm rolling in from the mountains. Daesung preferred it this way. Less people meant less distractions, and he could focus on his work. The defense tower stood 30 feet tall, its metal surface covered in orange dust. Daesung climbed the maintenance ladder and opened the control panel. The wiring inside looked like a bird's nest. Someone had tried to fix it before and made things worse. He pulled out his diagnostic scanner and started checking each circuit. That was when he heard the clicking sound. Daesung froze. He had heard that sound before in training videos. The Vrilthar made that noise when they hunted. He slowly reached for his plasma rifle, but his hand touched empty air. He looked down and cursed under his breath. The rifle was on the ground 20 feet below where he had left it to climb faster. 3 shapes moved between the containers below. They were big, maybe 7 feet tall, with bodies covered in black chitinous armor that looked like insect shells. Their heads were angular and eyeless, but Daesung knew they could sense heat and movement better than any human eye. The Vrilthar were raiders, scavengers who attacked isolated outposts for supplies and technology. The middle one tilted its head, and Daesung knew it had sensed him. He had maybe 5 seconds before they attacked. His mind raced through options. The emergency beacon was in his toolkit, but it would take 3 minutes for help to arrive. The tower had no weapons. The nearest building was 50 yards away across open ground. The Vrilthar moved. They were fast, impossibly fast for creatures so large. The first one reached the ladder in 2 seconds. Daesung didn't think. He jumped. He landed hard on top of the creature, driving his knee into the gap where its head met its body. The Vrilthar screeched, a sound like metal scraping metal, and threw him off. Daesung rolled and came up running, not toward safety but toward his rifle. The second Vrilthar cut him off. Its blade arm swung at his head. Daesung ducked and felt the wind from the strike ruffle his hair. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung it with both hands. The pipe bent against the creature's armor but didn't break through. The Vrilthar clicked with what might have been laughter. Daesung threw the pipe at its face and ran left. He needed his rifle. Just 5 more yards. The third Vrilthar appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Daesung skidded to a stop. He was surrounded now, 3 of them forming a triangle around him. The creatures clicked to each other, communicating. They were toying with him, enjoying the hunt. Daesung's heart hammered in his chest, but his breathing stayed controlled. 7 years of military training kicked in. 7 years of learning how to fight when everything went wrong. His hand touched something on his belt. The plasma torch. It was meant for cutting through metal, not fighting, but it was all he had. He pulled it out and ignited it. The blue flame hissed to life, casting strange shadows. The Vrilthar paused. They had never seen a human hold fire in their hand before. Daesung didn't wait. He charged the nearest one, the same creature he had jumped on earlier. It raised its blade arm to strike, but Daesung slid under the blow and drove the plasma torch into the joint where the arm connected to the body. The superheated flame cut through the gap in the armor. The Vrilthar screamed and stumbled back. The second one attacked from behind. Daesung heard it coming and spun, using the torch like a sword. He slashed across its face and the creature recoiled, its head smoking. But the movement left him open. The third Vrilthar hit him from the side, its blade arm cutting across his shoulder. Pain exploded through Daesung's body. He fell and rolled, and the torch flew from his hand. Blood soaked his shirt. The wound was deep but not fatal, not yet. He forced himself to his feet, vision blurring. The 3 Vrilthar regrouped. One was wounded, another had a burned face, but all 3 were still dangerous. They stopped playing now. They moved to kill. Daesung backed toward the storage container behind him. His shoulder screamed with every movement. He had no weapons now. No fire, no tools. Just his hands and his training and a desperate plan forming in his mind. The wounded Vrilthar charged first. Daesung waited until the last second, then grabbed a handful of red dust from the ground and threw it at the creature's sensory organs. The Vrilthar hesitated, confused. Daesung used that moment. He jumped and grabbed the container's edge, pulling himself up despite the pain. The Vrilthar slashed at where he had been, hitting only air. From the top of the container, Daesung could see his rifle. It was right there, 15 feet away on the ground. But between him and the weapon stood 3 angry Vrilthar who now knew he was dangerous. He jumped down on the other side of the container and ran. Not toward the rifle, toward the maintenance shed. The Vrilthar gave chase, their clicking becoming angry shrieks. Daesung reached the shed and yanked open the door. Inside were tools, spare parts, and construction equipment, and a welding tank. He grabbed the tank with his good arm and spun around. The first Vrilthar was right behind him, blade arm raised. Daesung swung the tank like a bat, hitting the creature in the chest. The tank ruptured. Compressed gas exploded outward, and the force threw both Daesung and the Vrilthar backward. Daesung's back hit the shed wall. Stars exploded in his vision. Blood ran down his arm. Every breath hurt. But he was alive, and the fight was not over. The Vrilthar was getting up, and its 2 companions were circling around, far above, beyond the dust and the atmosphere, beyond where any human eye could see. Sensors on a massive alien ship recorded everything. On the bridge of that ship, beings who had conquered 17 star systems watched a lone human fight for his life with nothing but determination and rage. And they began to understand that their files on humanity were very, very wrong. Empress Yura sat on her command throne, her 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display that floated before her. The image showed a human male fighting 3 Vrilthar warriors in what should have been a massacre. She had watched this feed for 6 minutes now, and every second brought new confusion. Around her, the bridge crew of the flagship Silent Judgment stood in perfect silence. 30 of her finest warriors and strategists, beings who had seen 1,000 battles across 100 worlds, watched the same impossible scene. The human was bleeding. His weapon was gone. By every calculation in the Calith database, he should be dead. The Vrilthar were classified as level 4 combat threats. Their armor could stop most projectile weapons. Their blade arms could cut through steel. 3 of them, together, could overwhelm a Calith soldier equipped with full combat gear. But this human fought with nothing. No armor, no energy shields, no proper weapons, just his body and objects he found lying around. Commander Taemin stood beside the throne, his scaled hand gripping his weapon harness. He was Yura's oldest military advisor, a veteran of 60 campaigns. She had never seen his face show fear before. "This recording is accurate?" Yura asked, though she already knew the answer. "Yes, Your Majesty," replied Jiwoo, the ship's science officer. She worked the control panel with her long fingers, bringing up data streams beside the video. "We have verified all sensor data 3 times, no tampering, no errors. This is happening in real time on the planet's surface." On the screen, the human grabbed a piece of debris and threw it at the nearest Vrilthar. The throw was not random. It hit the joint in the creature's leg exactly where the armor was thinnest. The Vrilthar stumbled. The human rushed forward and kicked the same leg. Something cracked. The Vrilthar went down. "Impossible," Taemin whispered. "Their bone density is too low. That kick should have broken his leg, not the Vrilthar's armor." Jiwoo's fingers danced across her controls, pulling up biological data. "The human's body chemistry has changed. Adrenaline levels are 4 times normal. Heart rate is extremely elevated. Core temperature rising. According to our models, he should be going into shock from his wounds, but instead his physical performance is increasing." Yura leaned forward. She had ruled the Calith Empire for 200 years. In that time, she had studied every species the Empire encountered. She had read every combat report, watched every battle recording. She thought she understood warfare in all its forms. She had never seen anything like this. The wounded Vrilthar on the ground tried to rise. The human didn't let it. He dropped, on the creature with both knees, driving them into the weak point at the base of its skull. The Vrilthar's body went limp. 1 down. The remaining 2 Vrilthar attacked together. They had stopped treating the human as prey, and now fought like they faced an equal threat. Their blade arms moved in coordinated strikes, covering each other's movements. The human dodged, rolled, and ducked. His movements were not elegant. There was no formal training visible in his style. But every motion had purpose. He wasted no energy. When he attacked, he targeted joints, sensory organs, and armor gaps. When he defended, He used the environment, containers, walls, and debris, to block attacks. Pull up the human database file, Yura commanded. A new hologram appeared. It showed the standard Calith assessment of humanity. Species, human. Origin, planet Earth. Classification, tool-dependent bipeds. Threat level, Class 3, moderate. Combat effectiveness, low without weapons. Physical strength, below average. Armor, none natural. Primary advantage, tool creation and group tactics. Yura read the words and then looked back at the fight. The human had just broken a Vrilthar's blade arm by trapping it in a container door and pulling with his full body weight. The description and reality did not match. When was this file created, she asked. Jiwoo checked her data. 70 years ago, Your Majesty. It was compiled from remote observations of human colonies and intercepted communications. Remote observations, Yura repeated slowly. Has any Calith warrior ever fought a human in close combat? Silence answered her question. No, Your Majesty, Taemin finally said. Humans are rare in this sector. They have only been spacefaring for 2 generations. We have never considered them worth studying in detail. On the screen, the human wrapped his bleeding arm around a Vrilthar's neck from behind. He squeezed and twisted. The Vrilthar tried to shake him off, but the human held on with what looked like pure determination. When the creature finally stopped moving, the human released it and collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. One Vrilthar remained. It circled the human slowly. Both were wounded now. Both were exhausted. But the human stood up again, raising his fists in a fighting stance that looked ancient and primitive. Where did he learn to fight like that? Yura wondered aloud. Jiwoo pulled up more data. According to Earth cultural files, humans have developed hundreds of combat systems over their history. They call them martial arts, boxing, wrestling, judo, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga. They have spent thousands of years studying the science of fighting with bare hands. Thousands of years? Taemin's voice rose slightly. They have systematized unarmed combat for thousands of years? Yes, Commander, and not just for warfare. Our files show they fight each other for sport, for entertainment. They have competitions where they fight in cages while others watch for recreation. Yura felt something cold move through her chest. The Calith prided themselves on being warriors. Combat was sacred to them, but they fought with honor, with weapons, with rules. The idea of fighting for fun, of making violence into entertainment, was alien to her and terrifying. The last Vrilthar charged. The human didn't run. He stepped forward to meet it. At the last moment, he dropped low and drove his shoulder into the creature's midsection. They went down together in a cloud of red dust. For 10 seconds, the sensors could not see clearly. The dust was too thick. When it cleared, the human was on top of the Vrilthar, hitting it repeatedly in what the database called the head region. His fists were covered in his own blood and the creature's internal fluids. The Vrilthar stopped moving. The human stayed on top of it, fists raised for 3 more seconds. Then he rolled off and lay on his back, chest heaving. 3 Vrilthar warriors dead. 1 human still alive. The bridge crew remained silent. Yura could feel their shock. It mirrored her own. He fought, Taemin said quietly, like he was already dead. Like death was just another enemy to defeat. Yura stood from her throne. Jiwoo, pull all files on human psychology and combat behavior. I want to know how this is possible. Taemin, prepare a diplomatic landing party. We will visit this colony. Your Majesty? Taemin looked surprised. We are here to observe and assess threats. Direct contact was not in our mission plan. The mission plan is changed. Yura moved to the window that showed the planet below. For 70 years we have classified humans as tool-dependent and weak in close combat. We were wrong. If we were wrong about this, what else are we wrong about? She watched the planet's red surface, thinking about the bleeding human who killed 3 raiders with his bare hands. I must meet him, she said. I must understand what we are dealing with, because if 1 human can do this, what can 1 million do? What can 1 billion do? The question hung in the air like a threat. On the planet below, Daesung finally managed to stand. He retrieved his rifle and activated his emergency beacon. Help would come soon. The Vrilthar were dead. He had survived. He did not know that the greatest warriors in the galaxy had watched his fight. He did not know that an empress had decided his actions would change the course of history. He only knew his shoulder hurt, and he really wanted some medical attention and maybe a drink. Sometimes the most important moments in history happen to people who are just trying to survive another day. Jiwoo had not slept in 30 hours. She sat in the research lab of the Silent Judgment, surrounded by holographic screens filled with data about humans. Every file she opened made the mystery deeper. Empress Yura had given her a direct order. Understand how a human could fight like that. Jiwoo was the best science officer in the fleet. She had analyzed the biology of 47 different species. She had never been this confused before. She played the fight recording again, slowing it down frame by frame. The moment when Daesung's body chemistry changed was clearly visible in the thermal imaging. His core temperature spiked. His muscle response time increased. His pain threshold seemed to disappear. "Computer," she said. "Explain human adrenaline response." The ship's AI displayed information. Adrenaline is a hormone produced by human adrenal glands during stress. Effects include increased heart rate, elevated blood pressure, expanded air passages, redirected blood flow to muscles, pupil dilation, and temporary pain suppression. Duration, typically 10 to 20 minutes. Jiwoo read the data twice. This is a biological combat drug. They produce it naturally? Affirmative. All human bodies contain this system. It activates automatically during perceived danger. She sat back in her chair, trying to understand. The Caliph had combat stimulants, but they had to be injected. Soldiers trained for years to use them properly. But humans were born with this ability built into their bodies. "What are the negative effects?" she asked. "Physical exhaustion after adrenaline depletes. Possible injury from exceeding normal physical limits. Long-term psychological stress if activated repeatedly. And humans evolved this naturally? Why?" The computer pulled up Earth's geological and biological history. Jiwoo read about ice ages, about humans surviving in environments that killed most other species. She read about persistence hunting, where humans chased prey animals for hours until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. She learned about human evolution on a planet that tried to kill them in every possible way. Predators, disease, climate change, starvation. And somehow, humans survived by being too stubborn to die. But it was the cultural files that truly disturbed her. She opened a file labeled Human Martial Arts History and stared at the contents. Documentation going back 10,000 years, hundreds of different fighting systems, thousands of recorded techniques, all focused on one goal: how to defeat another human with bare hands. She watched video footage. Ancient humans wrestling in dirt circles, medieval humans in armor fighting with swords and fists, modern humans in gyms training their entire lives to punch harder, kick faster, grapple better. Computer, why do humans study combat so extensively? Multiple reasons found in cultural databases: self-defense, sport, entertainment, military training, philosophy, physical fitness, social status, cultural tradition. Jiwoo highlighted one word: entertainment. More videos appeared. Humans fighting in rings while thousands of others watched and cheered. They called it boxing, kickboxing, mixed martial arts. She watched two humans beat each other bloody while a crowd screamed with excitement. When it ended, both fighters embraced like brothers. "They do this for fun," she whispered. "They hurt each other for recreation." She pulled up more data. Human sports were filled with violence: football, hockey, rugby. Even their children played games where they tackled and hit each other. Computer comparison request. How many Caliph fighting systems exist? 7 formal military combat techniques, all designed for use with standard weapons and armor. How many human fighting systems exist? The computer paused processing. Precise count unknown. Documented systems number over 300. Undocumented regional variations estimated at over 1,000. Jiwoo felt her scales prickle with unease. The Caliph had conquered 17 star systems with 7 fighting techniques. Humans had developed hundreds of systems just to fight each other. She opened another file: Human Military History. The list of wars was incomprehensibly long. hundreds of major conflicts, thousands of minor ones. Humans had fought each other for territory, resources, religion, politics, and sometimes for reasons the computer couldn't even translate properly. She read about world wars, about nuclear weapons, about chemical warfare and biological weapons and tactics so brutal that humans themselves had created laws to ban them. They fight their own species more than they fight others, she realized. They've spent their entire history perfecting the art of killing each other. A new message appeared on her screen. Commander Taemin requesting her presence in the strategy room. Jiwoo gathered her files and went. The strategy room held 12 senior officers, all studying the human combat recording. Taemin stood at the center, manipulating a tactical hologram. Science Officer Jiwoo, he greeted her. We have been analyzing the humans' fighting technique. We need your assessment. She moved to the display. It showed a breakdown of Daesung's movements analyzed by the ship's combat computer. The computer cannot predict his actions, Taemin explained. Every algorithm we have fails after the third move. His fighting style has no consistent pattern. Jiwoo highlighted several movements. That's because he's using multiple systems. Here he throws like a boxer. Here he grapples like a wrestler. Here he kicks like a Muay Thai fighter. He's combining different techniques based on the situation. Is this common among human warriors? According to my research, yes. Modern human soldiers learn from many different systems. They call it mixed martial arts or combatives. The goal is adaptability. Another officer, a young male named Dong-woo, spoke up. But the Vrilthar are level 4 threats. They have killed Kalith soldiers. How did an unarmed human defeat 3 of them? Jiwoo pulled up biological data. Humans are persistence predators. On Earth, they hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed. They didn't need to be stronger or faster. They just needed to never give up. She showed them thermal imaging of Daesung's body during the fight. His adrenaline system gives him temporary advantages. Pain suppression, increased strength, faster reaction time. But more importantly, it changes his psychology. Humans in combat don't calculate survival probability. They fight until they win or die. Taemin's expression darkened. They don't retreat? They can retreat, Jiwoo corrected. But when cornered, their biology and psychology combine to create something my research calls berserker state. They stop caring about their own survival. All thought focuses on eliminating the threat. She showed them another video, this one from Earth's history. A human soldier with severe injuries fighting off multiple attackers to protect civilians. The soldier died, but so did all the attackers. In Kalith culture, Taemin said slowly, we honor warriors who die in battle, but we value survival and victory more. We retreat when odds are against us to fight another day. Humans value survival too, Jiwoo replied. But they have this saying, fight like cornered animal. When they believe they will die anyway, they become most dangerous, because they focus completely on taking the enemy with them. Silence filled the room. Every officer understood the implications. An enemy who didn't care about dying was the most dangerous kind. There's more, Jiwoo continued. She pulled up education files. Human children train in combat from young ages. They call it physical education, wrestling, boxing, martial arts classes. It's part of their normal childhood. They train their children for war? Dongwoo sounded shocked. Not exactly. They call it sport and exercise. But yes, millions of human children learn to fight before they become adults. It's so normal in their culture they don't even think of it as military training. Taemin turned to her with serious eyes. Science officer, your honest assessment. If the Kalith Empire went to war with humanity, what would happen? Jiwoo thought about everything she had learned. About a species that survived ice ages and created nuclear weapons. About people who studied violence like science and practiced it like art. About billions of humans who grew up learning to fight. Commander, she said carefully, we would win eventually. We have better technology and more combat experience. But the cost would be severe. Humans don't surrender easily. Every planet would have to be taken by force. Every city would be a battle. Even their civilians know how to fight. She pulled up one final image. A human female, maybe 60 years old, who had defended her home against armed intruders using kitchen knives and furniture. She survived. The intruders did not. They're all warriors, she finished. Not professionally trained, perhaps. But culturally and biologically, every human is capable of violence when pushed. And they've spent 10,000 years learning how to be very, very good at it. Taemin looked at the frozen image of Dae-sung standing over 3 dead Vrilthar. Empress Yura was right, he said quietly. We need to meet this human. We need to understand them before we make any decisions about humanity's place in the galaxy. Because, Dongwu added, if they ever unite and point all that violence outward instead of at each other. No one needed to finish that sentence. They all understood the danger of a species that treated warfare like art, science, sport, and religion all at once. In her quarters, Empress Yura received Jiwoo's full report. She read every page, watched every video, absorbed every terrifying fact about humanity. Then she made her decision. The Caliph Empire would descend to Epsilon 7. They would meet this human called Dae-sung, and they would learn the truth. Hana stared at the communication console like it might bite her. As the colonial administrator for Epsilon 7, she had dealt with equipment failures, dust storms, supply shortages, and worker disputes. She had never dealt with first contact with an alien species. Run that message again, she told the communications officer. The young man, looking as confused as she felt, replayed the transmission. A melodic voice spoke in perfect English, though the tone was unlike anything human. Epsilon 7 Colonial Authority. This is the Caliph Imperial Fleet. We request diplomatic audience with the human designated Dae-sung. We come in peace. We mean no harm. Please respond. How many ships? Hana asked. 3, Administrator. 1 massive flagship and 2 escort cruisers. They're holding position in high orbit. No weapons charged. They're just waiting. Hana rubbed her temples. Dae-sung was in the medical bay, recovering from his fight with the Vrilthar raiders. His shoulder wound had required surgery. He was on painkillers and probably asleep, and an alien empire wanted to talk to him specifically. Get me Director Park at Colonial Command, she said, and someone wake up Dae-sung. Gently. 20 minutes later, Dae-sung sat in the administrator's office, his arm in a sling, looking at the alien ships on the display screen. He had been briefed on the situation. He still didn't believe it. They want to meet me, he said flatly. Why? Hana showed him the footage from his fight. Your helmet camera caught everything. The data automatically uploaded to our servers. Somehow they have the same footage. They watched you fight those creatures. Dae-sung watched himself on the screen, fighting desperately for his life. It felt like it happened to someone else. And now they want to... What, study me? They said diplomatic audience. That usually means talking, not dissecting. Usually? Hana gave him a tired smile. I've never done this before, Dae-sung. But you're the one they asked for. Colonial Command says it's your choice. You can say no. Dae-sung thought about that. He could refuse and hope the aliens just left. Or he could meet them and find out why a species with massive warships cared about one human in a stupid fight. If I say yes, will you be there? I'm the ranking official. I have to be there. Then I'll do it. He stood up, wincing as his shoulder protested. When? They're sending a shuttle down in 1 hour. The landing pad had been cleared. Every off-duty worker in the colony stood behind safety barriers watching the sky. Hana stood at the center with Dae-sung beside her. 4 colonial security officers stood nearby, though their weapons seemed ridiculous compared to the alien ships above. The shuttle descended silently, a sleek silver craft that made human ships look like ancient toys. It touched down without a sound. A door opened and a ramp extended. The beings that emerged were tall, at least 7 feet. Their bodies were covered in fine scales that shimmered between blue and purple. They walked on 2 legs but had 4 arms. Their heads were elongated, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They wore armor that looked like it was grown rather than built, all curves and organic shapes. The lead figure stepped forward. She was larger than the others, and her armor glowed with soft light. Behind her came 6 warriors carrying weapons that hummed with contained energy. The lead figure stopped 10 feet from Hana and Dae-sung. When she spoke, a device on her chest translated her words into English. I am Empress Yura of the Caliph Empire. I rule 17 star systems and 3 billion souls. I have commanded fleets for 200 years, and I have come to this small colony to meet the human called Dae-sung. Her 4 eyes focused on him. Dae-sung felt like she could see through his skin and into his bones. Hana stepped forward, probably to give some formal greeting, but Yura raised one of her hands. Administrator Hana, I know who you are. Your presence is noted and respected, but my business today is with him. She looked back at Dae-sung. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Empress Yura did something that made her own warriors tense in surprise. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture Desung somehow knew was important. You fought 3 Vrilthar warriors with no weapons and survived, Yura said. In 200 years of conquest, I have never seen such a thing. My finest soldiers died to the Vrilthar. My combat algorithms cannot explain what you did. You are either the greatest warrior I have ever witnessed or the luckiest fool in the galaxy. Desung didn't know what to say to that, so he said the truth. Both, probably. Mostly the second one. One of the Kalith warriors made a sound like a hiss. Yura held up a hand, silencing him. You make jokes while wounded. Interesting. She tilted her head. My science officer says humans have spent 10,000 years studying how to kill with bare hands. Is this true? Yes, Desung said. We call them martial arts. I learned some when I was younger. Kept practicing in the military. It's pretty common. Common, Yura repeated. You consider it normal to train for combat without weapons? Sure, it's good exercise. Useful skill. And... Desung paused, trying to find the right words. On Earth we have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Training to fight without weapons means you're never completely helpless. Yura's eyes seemed to brighten. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You prepare for failure while hoping for success? Yeah, basically. Fascinating. Yura turned to one of her companions, a Kalith with darker scales. Commander Taemin, did you hear? They train for disaster while hoping it never comes. Practical pessimism. Taemin nodded slowly, his eyes studying Desung. And this is normal human thinking. Desung shrugged with his good shoulder. Where I'm from, yeah. Bad things happen. Best to be ready, Yura turned back to him. I watched you fight, Desung of Earth. I saw you charge warriors that should have killed you. I saw you use objects around you as weapons. I saw you continue fighting with injuries that would stop most beings. And most interesting, I saw you win. She moved closer. Even injured, Desung felt his body tense, ready to fight or run. Yura noticed and made a sound that the translator called appreciation. You still prepare to fight even now, she observed. Even wounded. Even facing 8 armed warriors. Your body remembers combat. Trained response, Desung explained. Hard to turn off. Show me your hands, it wasn't a request. Desung held out his left hand, his right being in a sling. Yura took it gently with 2 of her 4 hands. Her scales felt warm and smooth. These hands killed 3 Vrilthar warriors, she said quietly. They are smaller than mine. Less muscle, no claws, no natural weapons. And yet they ended 3 lives that were more physically powerful. She looked up at him. How? Training, technique, and honestly a lot of anger. They attacked me. I wanted to live more than they did. Wanted to live more, Yura repeated. She released his hand. Taemin analysis? The commander stepped forward. Your Majesty, if this is normal for humans, we need to completely reassess our threat classification. Agreed. Yura looked back at Desung. I have a proposal. I wish to establish relations between the Kalith Empire and humanity. But first, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Will you teach me about human combat? Show me how you fight. Explain your thinking? Desung glanced at Hana. She looked as surprised as he felt. This was far beyond anything he had expected. I'm not a diplomat, he said. I'm just a combat engineer who got in a bad situation. Which makes you perfect, Yura said. Diplomats speak in careful words. I need truth. You are a warrior who has proven himself. You think like a soldier. So do I. We will understand each other. She gestured to her ship in orbit. Come aboard the Silent Judgment. Bring your administrator if it makes you comfortable. I will guarantee your safety on my honor as Empress, and in return help me understand how one human defeated 3 Vrilthar. Desung thought about it. This was crazy. He should say no. He should let trained diplomats handle this. But something in Yura's eyes told him she was genuine. She wasn't here to threaten or conquer. She was here because she had seen something that scared her, and she wanted to understand it. Okay, he said, but I need better painkillers first. And someone should contact Earth and tell them what's happening. Yura made the sound that meant appreciation again. Practical. I like this. Yes, we will arrange medical treatment and communications. Tomorrow you will come to my ship, and we will talk about the human way of war. She bowed her head again, then turned and walked back to her shuttle. Her warriors followed. leaving Hana and Daesung standing on the landing pad as the alien craft lifted silently into the sky. "Did that just happen?" Daesung asked. "I think," Hana said slowly, "you just became humanity's first alien ambassador, by punching things really hard." Daesung laughed, then winced as the movement hurt his shoulder. "That sounds about right for my luck." Above them, the Calith fleet waited. And across the galaxy, Earth's government received a message that would change everything. "We have made first contact, and they want to talk about hand-to-hand combat." The training arena aboard the Silent Judgment was massive, circular, with a floor made of some material that felt like rubber but looked like stone. Daesung stood at the center, his shoulder freshly healed by Calith medical technology that made human medicine look primitive. Around the arena's upper levels, at least 200 Calith warriors stood watching. This was not the quiet diplomatic meeting Daesung had expected. This was a performance. Empress Yura sat on a raised platform, her four eyes watching him intently. Beside her stood Commander Taemin and Science Officer Jiwoo. Hana sat slightly behind them, looking uncomfortable in the alien environment but determined to witness everything. "Daesung of Earth." Yura's voice carried through the arena without any amplification needed. "You have agreed to demonstrate human combat techniques. I have assembled my finest warriors to observe and learn. Are you prepared?" Daesung rolled his newly healed shoulder. The Calith medical technology was incredible. 12 hours ago, he couldn't lift his arm. Now it felt better than before the injury. "I'm ready," he called back. "But I should explain something first. What you saw on the planet was survival fighting. Desperate, no rules. Real combat is ugly and brutal." "We understand combat," Taemin said. "We are warriors." "With respect, Commander, you understand war with weapons. What I do is different." Daesung gestured around the arena. "This is controlled, safe, but I can show you the principles." Yura leaned forward. "Then show us. I am told you wish to demonstrate against one of my soldiers? If someone's willing. No weapons, no armor, just technique against technique." A Calith warrior stepped forward from the crowd. He was tall like all his species, with scales that were dark green instead of blue. His forearms were thick with muscle, and even without armor he looked dangerous. "I am Kyung-soo," he announced. "I have served the Empire for 30 years. I have fought on 12 worlds. I accept your challenge, human." Daesung bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he had learned from his martial arts training on Earth. "Thank you for agreeing to this." Kyung-soo tilted his head, confused by the courtesy. Then he took a fighting stance, all forearms raised, each hand open to grab or strike. The audience fell silent. Even Empress Yura leaned forward in anticipation. "Before we start," Daesung said, "I need everyone to understand something. In human martial arts, we train like this all the time. We call it sparring. The goal is to learn, not to kill. When someone is beaten, we stop. Agreed?" Kyung-soo looked to Yura. She nodded. "Agreed. This is demonstration, not deathmatch." "Okay then." Daesung raised his hands, settling into a stance he had practiced for years. Boxing guard, feet shoulder width, weight on the balls of his feet. "Whenever you're ready." Kyung-soo moved. He was fast, incredibly fast for his size. Two of his hands grabbed for Daesung while the other two prepared to strike. It was a coordinated attack that should have been impossible to counter. Daesung didn't try to block all four hands. Instead, he moved. He stepped to the side and inward, closing the distance. His left hand pushed one of Kyung-soo's grabbing hands off course while his right drove up under the Calith's guard, striking at what looked like a solar plexus. The strike landed. Kyung-soo's air rushed out. Before he could recover, Daesung's leg swept behind the Calith's knee. Kyung-soo went down, and Daesung followed him, controlling his fall, positioning himself behind the larger being. Daesung's arm wrapped around Kyung-soo's neck in what he knew as a rear naked choke. He didn't squeeze hard, just applied enough pressure to make the point. "Do you yield?" he asked quietly. Kyung-soo tried to pull the arm away with his superior strength, but the angle was wrong. He couldn't get leverage. After 3 seconds of struggle, he tapped Daesung's arm twice. Daesung immediately released him and helped him stand. The entire exchange had lasted 8 seconds. The arena was silent. 200 Calith warriors stared in disbelief. A 30-year veteran had been defeated in seconds by a smaller being with only 2 arms. Yura stood from her throne. "Explain what we just saw." Daesung helped Kyung-soo brush himself off. The Kalith warrior looked stunned but not angry. "You're okay?" Taesung asked him first. "Yes," Kyung-soo replied slowly. "How did you do that?" "Leverage and technique." Daesung turned to address the entire arena. "Kyung-soo is stronger than me. Faster too. He has 4 arms to my 2. In a straight fight of strength against strength, he wins every time." He moved to the center of the arena. "But human martial arts don't rely on strength. We use leverage, momentum, and anatomy." Kyung-soo grabbed at me with his upper hands. That committed his movement. I stepped inside his reach where his long arms became a disadvantage. Then I struck at a vulnerable spot and used his own weight against him when I swept his leg. Jiwoo's voice came from the platform. "The chokehold? The target's blood flow to the brain, not the airway. No matter how strong you are, you can't fight it if the angle is right. It's physics, not strength," Kyung-soo spoke up. I could not break his grip. With all 4 arms, I could not break one human's grip. "Because I wasn't holding with strength," Daesung explained. "I was using body position. My whole body weight maintained the hold, not just my arm muscles. You were fighting physics, not me." Yura descended from her platform and entered the arena. She circled Daesung slowly, her 4 eyes examining him from every angle. "You have spent years learning this," she stated. "Since I was 12 years old. Boxing first, then wrestling, then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not even that good compared to professional fighters on Earth." "Not that good," Yura repeated. "You defeated a veteran warrior in seconds and claim you are not skilled." "I'm trained. There's a difference. On Earth, thousands of people train like I do. Some are much better." The implications of that statement rippled through the watching crowd. If this human was just average, what could their best warriors do? Taemin came down to the arena floor. "Human Daesung, you said this was for learning, not killing. You practice fighting without intent to kill? All the time. That's how we get better. We spar with partners, learn from mistakes, improve technique. If we fought to kill every time, we'd run out of training partners pretty quick." A strange sound came from several Kalith. Daesung realized they were laughing. "You make jokes about killing," one warrior said, "while teaching us how you kill." "Not exactly. I'm teaching you how we control opponents. Killing is easy. Control is hard." That made them go quiet again. Yura spoke. "Show us more." "Different techniques. I wish to understand the depth of human combat knowledge." For the next 2 hours, Daesung demonstrated. He showed them striking techniques from boxing and Muay Thai. He demonstrated throws from judo and wrestling. He explained joint locks from jiu-jitsu and pressure points from various martial arts. Each demonstration shocked the Kalith more. The systematic way humans had analyzed combat. The scientific approach to violence. The efficiency of techniques developed over thousands of years. Kyung-soo volunteered to be the demonstration partner for most of it. After the initial shock wore off, he became fascinated. "We train for war," he said during a break. "But you train to fight as if it is art. As if violence itself is something to study and perfect." "That's exactly what it is," Daesung confirmed. "On Earth, we have masters who spend entire lifetimes studying one aspect of combat. How to punch perfectly, how to kick with maximum power, how to grapple most efficiently. It's philosophy, science, and sport all together." Jiwoo had been recording everything. "I must update our database," she said to Yura. "Everything we knew about human combat capability was wrong. They don't just know how to fight. They have systematized it into teachable methods that anyone can learn." "Teachable," Yura repeated. She looked at her assembled warriors. "Could we learn these techniques?" "Of course," Daesung said. "That's the whole point. Martial arts are meant to be taught and shared. Some techniques might need modification for your body structure, but the principles work for anyone." Taemin stepped forward. "You would teach your enemy how to fight? Are you my enemy?" The question hung in the air. Taemin looked to Yura. The Empress studied Daesung with her 4 eyes. "That," she said slowly, "is a very good question. No, Commander, we are not enemies, not unless we choose to be." She turned to her assembled warriors. "What we have witnessed today changes everything. Humans have spent 10,000 years studying violence. They practice warfare as sport. They train children in combat skills, and they offer to teach others freely." She looked back at Daesung. "In Kalith culture, we guard our military secrets closely. But you stand here and offer to teach us your techniques." Why? Daesung thought about how to explain. "Because fighting isn't the point. Understanding is the point. I'd rather have you understand what we can do and respect it than stay ignorant and make bad decisions. You want us to fear you, Kyung-soo said. No. I want you to know us. Fear makes people do stupid things. Understanding makes people think before they act. Yura made the appreciation sound. Wisdom. You are not just a warrior, Daesung. You understand strategy beyond combat. I'm really not that special, Daesung insisted. Most humans would tell you the same thing. We'd rather talk than fight. But if fighting happens, we want to be ready. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, Yura quoted his earlier words. You are a species of pragmatic warriors. This is valuable knowledge, she addressed her entire crew. Today we learned the 3 weeks had passed since the demonstration in the arena. Daesung had become an unexpected resident aboard the Silent Judgment. Living in comfortable quarters while acting as a cultural ambassador between humanity and the Caliph Empire. He sat in what the Caliph called an observation lounge, watching the stars drift past through a transparent wall. Empress Yura entered quietly, though her presence was impossible to miss. You look troubled, she said, settling into a seat designed for her larger frame. Just thinking, Daesung replied. I'm supposed to be a combat engineer. Now I'm teaching aliens about human history. It's weird. Life often brings unexpected paths. Yura pulled up a holographic display. I have been watching more footage from Earth. Your planet's history is intense. Daesung winced. Yeah, we don't have the best track record. The display showed scenes from human history, wars, destruction, but also rebuilding, innovation, survival. Yura watched in silence for a moment. You fight yourselves more than you fight other species, she observed. In your recorded history, humans have fought humans in thousands of conflicts. Why? Lots of reasons: resources, territory, religion, politics, sometimes pride, sometimes stupidity. Daesung sighed. We're really good at finding reasons to disagree. But you survive. Every disaster, every war, every catastrophe, humanity endures. We're stubborn. Too dumb to quit, maybe. Yura made the sound that meant disagreement. Not stupidity, resilience. Let me show you what Jiwoo has discovered. She changed the display to show Earth's geological history. Ice ages, volcanic winters, mass extinction events. Through it all, a red line showed human population. It dipped low many times but never reached zero. 70,000 years ago, Yura said, a supervolcano erupted on your planet. It created a volcanic winter that lasted years. Human population dropped to fewer than 10,000 individuals. Most species would have gone extinct. But we didn't, Daesung said quietly. No, you survived. You adapted. You spread across the entire planet afterward, and then you did it again with the ice ages, and again with pandemics, and again with wars that should have ended your civilization. She turned to look at him. Do you know what my species calls that? Impossible survival. Most intelligent species die when faced with one existential threat. You have survived dozens. Is that good or bad? Both. It makes you dangerous, but it also makes you valuable. She pulled up more data. Since meeting you, I have studied other species in the galaxy. The Caliph are strong and organized. The Vrilthar are efficient hunters. The Torvani are technological geniuses. But humans, you are survivors. You specialize in not dying. Daesung laughed. That's the nicest way anyone's ever said we're too stubborn to know when we're beaten. It is more than stubborn. It is your greatest strength. Yura showed him footage of human cities rebuilt after disasters, of people helping each other during crises, of innovations born from desperation. When I first saw you fight, she continued, I thought you were an anomaly, an exceptional warrior, but now I understand. You are not exceptional among humans. You are typical. I'm really not that special, Daesung protested. Exactly my point. An average human defeated 3 Vrilthar warriors. An average human has training in combat. An average human knows history of warfare and tactics. On most planets, only specialized warriors have such knowledge. On Earth, it is common. She stood and walked to the window. Do you know what frightens me most about humanity? Our weapons? Our violence. No, your hope. Daesung blinked. Hope frightens you? Yes, because it is irrational and powerful. When the Caliph face impossible odds, we retreat and regroup. We calculate survival probability and act accordingly. But humans face impossible odds and think, perhaps I can win anyway. You weaponize optimism itself. She turned back to him. I have seen your military history. Battle after battle where humans were outnumbered, outgunned, facing certain defeat. And yet they fought. Sometimes they lost. But sometimes, impossibly, they won. Dae-sung thought about the stories he had learned in school. Last stands. Desperate defenses. Unlikely victories. We have a saying. It's not over until it's over. And another saying, Yura added. Never tell me the odds. And the only easy day was yesterday. And failure is not an option. I've compiled a list of human motivational phrases. There are thousands, all designed to encourage people to try the impossible. She showed him the list on the display, quotes from soldiers, athletes, leaders, and common people, all saying variations of the same thing: don't give up. Your entire culture is built around the idea that giving up is worse than dying, Yura said. This terrifies me because an enemy who will not surrender is the most dangerous enemy. But we're not your enemy, Dae-sung reminded her. No, and I would like to keep it that way. Which is why I need you to help me understand something. She pulled up a new display. It showed rules and laws. These are human laws of warfare. Geneva Conventions. Rules of engagement. International treaties. You have created elaborate rules for how to fight each other. Why? Dae-sung stood and approached the display. He had learned about these in military training, but explaining them to an alien was different. Because we learned the hard way, he said. Humans are really good at hurting each other. Too good. If we don't have rules, wars become so horrible that everyone loses. The rules protect civilians, prisoners, and even enemies. They keep war from becoming total destruction. You created rules to limit your own effectiveness. We created rules to stay civilized. Without them, war becomes genocide. We've done that before. It's not something we're proud of. Yura studied the information. Fascinating. You are capable of extreme violence, but you choose to restrain yourselves. You could fight without mercy, but you create mercy intentionally. It's not perfect, Dae-sung admitted. People break the rules. War crimes happen, but we try. We punish those who go too far. We teach soldiers about honor and duty and protecting the innocent. Even though it would be easier to simply destroy all opposition, because that's not who we want to be. Yeah, we can fight dirty. Yeah, we can be brutal, but we try to be better than our worst impulses. Yura was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised him. I think I understand now why you were in that supply depot alone, fighting 3 Vrilthar. You could have run. You could have hidden. But you fought to protect the colony, to defend others even at risk to yourself. That's just my job. No, many beings would say defending others is their job, but when faced with death, most run. You charged forward, because to you running was worse than dying. Dae-sung didn't know what to say to that. He had never thought of himself as particularly brave. He just did what needed doing. Let me tell you something about Kalith culture, Yura said. We value strength and honor. We fight to win. We conquer to expand. But we always calculate costs. We retreat when needed. We surrender if continuing means destruction. She looked at him with all 4 eyes. In 200 years of rule, I have conquered 17 star systems. I have won every major battle. I have never faced an enemy I could not eventually defeat through superior strategy and strength. And now you're worried about humans? Yes, because I have studied your history, and I see a pattern. When humans are pushed to the edge of extinction, they fight hardest. When offered surrender, they often refuse. When told something is impossible, they try anyway. You are a species that does not know when to quit. Is that a compliment or an insult? Both. It makes you incredibly valuable as allies, and terrifyingly dangerous as enemies. She pulled up a star map showing human colonies in Kalith territory. Humanity has only been in space for 3 generations. You have 12 colony worlds. The Kalith have been spacefaring for 3,000 years. We have 140 planets. You're way ahead of us, Dae-sung said. In territory, yes. In technology, yes. But Jiwoo has calculated human population growth, industrial expansion, and colonization rates. In 200 years, if current trends continue, human space will rival Kalith space. In 500 years, you could be the largest presence in the galaxy. That's a long time. Not to beings who live for centuries. I am 200 years old. I could see humanity rise to equal the Kalith. That is why I needed to meet you, to understand what kind of neighbors you will be. Dae-sung felt the weight of her words. This was not just about him anymore. This was about humanity's future in the stars. So what do you think? He asked. About us, I mean. Yura was quiet, considering. I think humans are dangerous, violent, stubborn, and unpredictable. I think you fight among yourselves constantly and have trouble agreeing on anything. I think your history is full of terrible mistakes and barely avoided disasters. She paused, then continued. I also think you are brave, innovative, resilient, and impossibly hopeful. I think you help each other in crisis. I think you learn from mistakes eventually. And I think you have the potential to be the galaxy's greatest ally or its worst nightmare. Which do you want us to be? Allies, definitely allies. She made the appreciation sound. Because I have seen what you can do when cornered. I do not wish to fight a species that sees extinction as just another problem to solve. Daesung smiled. We'd rather be friends too. Fighting is exhausting. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, a circular room that could hold representatives from 40 different species. Daesung had never felt so small or so out of place. He stood beside Empress Yura's delegation, wearing a formal uniform that Earth's government had rushed to him. Administrator Hana stood nearby, looking equally uncomfortable. Around the chamber sat beings of every imaginable shape. Some were humanoid, others were not. Some breathed oxygen, others required specialized environmental suits. All of them stared at the two humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. Empress Yura stood at the central podium, her bioluminescent armor glowing softly in the chamber's light. When she spoke, translation systems carried her words to every species present. Honored council members, I come before you today to propose the recognition of humanity as a Tier 2 civilization with full membership rights and privileges. Immediate uproar. Representatives from a dozen species began speaking at once, their translators creating a chaos of objection. A being that looked like a floating crystal cluster spoke loudest. The Caliph Empress proposes elevating a species that has barely left its own star system? This is unprecedented and inappropriate. The Meershan representative is correct, added a creature made of what looked like living metal. Humans have no ancient culture. No proof of long-term stability. They are children playing with starships. Yura waited for the noise to die down. Her 4 eyes scanned the chamber calmly. Council members, I understand your concerns. Let me address them directly. Yes, humanity has only been spacefaring for 3 generations. Yes, their civilization is young compared to ours. But what I have learned about humans in the past month has convinced me that age is not the only measure of capability. She activated a holographic display at the center of the chamber. It showed footage of Daesung fighting the Vrilthar warriors. 3 weeks ago, this human defeated 3 Vrilthar raiders in close combat. He had no weapons, no armor, no backup, and yet he survived and eliminated all 3 threats. The chamber fell silent. Every species knew about the Vrilthar. They were feared across the galaxy. A reptilian delegate leaned forward. One incident does not prove species-wide capability. Perhaps this human is exceptional. That was my first thought as well, Yura agreed. But investigation revealed something more concerning. She changed the display to show Earth's martial arts schools, military training facilities, and combat sports. This human is not exceptional by his species standards. He is average. Millions of humans train in combat as he does. It is part of their normal culture. She let that sink in before continuing. Humans have spent 10,000 years systematizing violence. They have created hundreds of fighting techniques that anyone can learn. They practice warfare as sport. They train their children in combat skills from young ages. And they do this not because they are at war, but because they believe in being prepared. The crystalline Meershan representative flickered. This proves they are dangerous, not that they deserve recognition. Dangerous, yes, Yura agreed. But let me tell you what else humans are. She changed the display to show human history. Disasters and recoveries, wars and rebuilding, crisis after crisis, and humanity surviving each one. 70,000 years ago, human population dropped to fewer than 10,000 individuals due to volcanic winter. They survived. Multiple ice ages threatened extinction. They survived. Pandemics killed millions. They survived and created medicine to prevent it happening again. They developed nuclear weapons capable of destroying their world. They created laws to control them. She turned to face the council. Humans are not just dangerous. They are resilient. They are innovative. They specialize in survival. And most importantly, they understand restraint. A new display showed human laws of warfare. These are Geneva Conventions, rules humans created to limit their own effectiveness in war. They could fight without mercy, but they choose not to. They protect prisoners. They avoid civilian targets. They prosecute their own soldiers who commit atrocities. Show me another young species with such self-imposed discipline. Commander Taemin stepped forward to support Yura. I am a Kalith military commander with 60 years of experience. I have studied the human called Daesung and his fighting techniques. What the Empress says is true. Humans have capabilities we did not know existed, but they also have honor and control. Daesung felt dozens of alien eyes turn to him. He tried to stand straighter, to look like someone worthy of this attention. The metallic delegate spoke. Even if what you say is true, why should we elevate them to Tier 2? They have not proven they can maintain stable interstellar civilization. Because, Yura said firmly, it is better to welcome them as friends now than to make them enemies later. I have studied human population growth and expansion rates. In 500 years, they will be a major galactic presence whether we recognize them or not. The question is whether we treat them as equals who can participate in galactic civilization, or as outsiders who must fight for every gain. She gestured to Daesung. This human fought Thar because it was his duty to protect others. Not for glory, not for reward, because it was right. That is the human I have come to know, a species that values duty, protection of others, and doing what is right even at personal cost. Administrator Hana spoke up, her voice shaky but determined. May I address the council? Yura nodded. Hana stepped forward, tiny compared to most beings present. I am a civilian administrator for a small mining colony. I am not military. I am not a diplomat. But I work with humans every day. We argue, we disagree. We make mistakes. But when disaster strikes, we help each other. That is what humanity is. Not perfect, not peaceful, but trying to be better. She looked around the chamber. You are worried we are dangerous. You are right. But we are dangerous to those who threaten us and those we protect. Empress Yura has offered friendship. We would rather have friends than enemies. But we will not be treated as children who need permission to exist in space. The chamber erupted in discussion again. Some delegates seemed swayed. Others remained hostile. The debate went on for hours, with Yura presenting evidence and answering questions. Finally, the Mirshan representative spoke. Let me pose a question to the human called Daesung. You fight with skill that surprises us. You survive against impossible odds. But can you be peaceful? Can humanity coexist with species different from yourselves? Daesung had been quiet through most of the proceedings. Now all eyes turned to him. He took a breath and spoke. I'm not a politician. I'm just a guy who fixes things and tries not to die. But I can tell you this. On Earth we have hundreds of countries, thousands of cultures, millions of people who disagree about everything. And yes, we fight sometimes. We have wars. We make mistakes. He looked around at the alien faces. But we also have the United Nations, international laws, peace treaties, trade agreements. We have learned, slowly and with lots of failures, how to live together despite our differences. We are not perfect at it, but we try. He gestured to Yura. The Empress is right that we are dangerous. But we are most dangerous when threatened. If you treat us as equals, as partners, we will be the best allies you could want. We will fight beside you against common threats. We will share our knowledge. We will trade fairly. We will respect your cultures, he paused. But if you treat us as primitives to be controlled, if you deny us the right to exist as equals in the galaxy, then yeah, we will be dangerous. Because humans do not accept being told we are lesser. We do not accept being controlled. We fought for freedom on Earth and we will fight for it among the stars. Silence filled the chamber. Then the reptilian delegate made a sound like a laugh. The human speaks with fire. I respect this. He does not beg or plead. He states facts. I will support the Kalith proposal. One by one, other delegates voiced support. Not all agreed, but enough did. The vote was called. When the results appeared on the chamber's displays, the decision was clear. Humanity would be recognized as Tier 2 civilization. The Kalith-Human Alliance would be formalized. A new age of cooperation would begin. Yura bowed to the council. Thank you. The Kalith Empire guarantees the terms of this agreement. We will sponsor humanity's integration into galactic society. As the council session ended, delegates approached to speak with Daesung and Hana. Some were friendly, others were cautious. All were curious about the species that had entered galactic politics by punching things. Later, aboard the Silent Judgment, Yura invited Dae-sung and Hana to a private celebration. The observation lounge was filled with Kalith officers, including Commander Tae-min, Science Officer Ji-woo, and the warrior Kyung-soo who had sparred with Dae-sung. To new alliances, Yura raised a crystal container filled with something that glowed faintly blue, the Kalith equivalent of a toast. Dae-sung raised his own glass of water. To not fighting each other, laughter filled the room. The tension of the past weeks seemed to dissolve. These were no longer just aliens and humans. They were colleagues, maybe even friends. Kyung-soo approached Dae-sung with what looked like respect in his eyes. You taught me much, human. I have been practicing the techniques you showed. My squad now trains in your grappling methods. How's it going? Dae-sung asked.